Okay. Okay, yes, I'm recording now. Okay. So, and our first talk this year is by Luca Marinelli from Queen Mary University of London. So Luca is a PhD student at the UKRI CDT in Artificial Intelligence and Music at the Centre for Digital Music, Queen Mary University of London, under the co-supervision of Dr. Saitis, Fazekas, and Lucht. Prof. Lucht, Center for Interdisciplinary Women's and Gender Studies, Technical University of Berlin. His PhD project sits at the intersection of music data science, gender, and media studies, aiming at implementing machine learning techniques to aid the critical analysis of gendered markers in large corpora of television adverts. So without any further ado, I think, yes, we can start, Luca, if you want. The floor is yours.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So first of all, thank you very much for having me. In this project, I'm trying to develop automatic tools for quote-unquote musically informed discourse analysis. And the focus of the entire project, so the case study, if you want, we will talk about generalizing, expanding the target of this technology later, perhaps. The focus is on toy advertisements. And so the next, yes. The contents of today's presentation I will first introduce the main contribution of my entire PhD project. Then I will focus on gendering of music and gender-based market segmentation. I will provide an exploration of the intersection between gender-based market segmentation and music, investigating the role of music prime, what I call music prime gender schemas, in shaping music perception and cognition. And then I will introduce our hierarchical approach to data collection, which might be interesting to practitioners that want to consider music analysis in their otherwise usually text analysis, I guess, image even. And I will share the main takeaways of another paper, which is the psychometrics paper you can see in the slides, and which is scheduled for being published in a couple of weeks in the journal PLOS ONE. Whereas today's presentation is about the paper that I already presented and published at a conference it's called Conference in Music Information Retrieval, which is officially my field, which is AI and music, if you want, to oversimplify things. And then, a bit of highlights from that, and then questions, yeah, sure. And so the main contribution of the entire project that will provide a basis for a theory of the effects that message producers, their decision-making or their unconscious gender biases have on the selection and composition of sound and music in toy advertisements. We gain an empirical understanding of the salient role of music in reproducing and perpetuating traditional gender discourse and its power relations. And we propose a novel hierarchical data set and data collection approach, which enabled a multifaceted analysis of the phenomenon, in particular, the reproduction of gender roles. But yeah, who knows? We actually very much invite other practitioners to expand this and to go beyond gender, perhaps in media representations of other identity facets. And we implemented tools finally, we implemented tools, and the topic of today's, the focus of today's presentation, tools for an automatic critical analysis of gender stereotypes in speech and music in toy advertisements, which then can be used to raise awareness, educate, or even inform, at least this is what we envision, inform policy making. Moving on to the specificities of the gendering of music, instruments have been consistently associated with masculinity or femininity even when their sound is presented in isolation and not visually linked to the actual object, such as trumpets being widely considered masculine and flutes as feminine, or drums, which have been historically used in war, and harps, which why harps are feminine, if one goes historically going into looking into that, is saloniers in the 18th century, in late 18th century France. Saloniers were these women, upper class women that hosted events, usually playing their instruments, and the harp was one of the most common played by women at the time, and therefore association, visual, textual association in opera, in theater, in whatnot, media representation from then till today have reinforced this association of femininity with harp, for example. Several studies have investigated whether individual sounds or their organization within a composition could infer the sex or gender of the performer or composer, with contradictory results, where one study found significant correlations between the gender of the composers and characteristics of their music, while another two did not. There is not really a lot of music psychology literature on that. And so we really have to compare the few studies that we have. In our opinion, the contradiction in this study stems fundamentally, there are many other layers to analyze that, but fundamentally in the fact that there is no causal relationship between the gender of the composer and gender music styles. Instead, the nature of this relationship is cultural and discursive, where this is to be read as a contingent and learned phenomenon. An example and a correspective of this phenomenon in language will be the famous study by Robin Lakoff on women's talk, where registers of the linguistic register of women is qualitatively different and makes use of more passive forms, and at least at the time of the study that was measured. This is really like, it's a matter of the performativity and the discursivity of languages. It's not to be read in an essentialist way. So there is no causal relationship between gender and specifically between sex and language, and how you use language. In the same way, there is no correlation, no causal. There is correlation. There is no causal relationship between musical styles that are feminine or masculine. In this case, in this study, what we do is analyzing it in the context of toy commercials, which are clearly targeted to a gendered audience, that are targeted to a specific audience along gender-specific lines. And gender schemas, this is the introduction, the idea that we introduced to explain how music can be reproduced by musicians, even unknowingly, but in the case of commercial, very much deliberately, as we will see, but even by musicians unknowingly, can be reproduced these feminine or masculine styles in music. How? Basically, gender schemas are learned cognitive networks of associations that assimilate or reject gender-appropriate ideas and activities. Schemas, cognitive schemas in general, not only gendered ones, guide an individual's perception, information processing, and memory retention, as they prevent information overload by organizing one's perceptual experience into a coherent and intelligible whole. Popular music genres have been themselves theorized as cognitive schemas in terms of like information bundles, patterns that repeat styles, and popular music genres have been theorized as cognitive schemas containing extra musical concepts that can be primed when a subject is exposed to the genre's music. Such schemas are formed through repeated exposure to the multimodal discourse encompassing music. Music prime cognitive schemas can alter our perception of other people's ethnicity, rural, urban background, age, expertise, and even gender. We thus posit that not only gender roles and stereotypes can be understood in terms of schemas, but also that masculine and feminine musical styles can be viewed as music prime gender schemas, which to some extent must overlap with the former. So why toy commercials in particular? Simply because they are the best concentrated form of gendered style association between visual and musical and sound and whatnot. As a result of gender-based market segmentation, clear differences are observable and have been documented for over 40 years of research for different gender targets in the choice of music, sound effects, voice, timbres, language, color coding, montage, setting, cast, acting roles. Basically, every semiotic mode is gender polarized. And given that the gender of the commercials is factual by design, they decide this commercial is for boys, this commercial is for girls, and we know that. And that music, so given that the target is very much factual, and that the music is secondary to the content on the video, we can therefore safely assume that the gender of the music is also factual by design. It's not something that just listeners endow music with, that attribute to music, ascribe to music is not just in the mind of the perceiver, is very much by design. And in addition, another reason why toys commercials is that by being toys targeted at children in their developmental age, we can gain a privileged glance into the birthplace of what we were calling before music prime gender schemas. So very much these commercials work as a prototype, as an archetype even of music visual associations charged with gender meanings. I will show this, but we tried it before. The videos from this slide don't work, so I have to unshare and then start the presentation again because I have some content to share. And then say share again. So this is what I'm talking about. This is, I will also show later in the slides. This is a two-dimensional representation of the data that we collected, and particularly of the music descriptions, the scriptural, perceptual descriptors of the commercials. And essentially, if you map all of this information into a two-dimensional plane, using UMAP, which is, if people are familiar with that, is similar to Disney, which is the non-linear version. Both of them are the non-linear version of PCA. If you want, is very just throwing some technical terms for the technical audience. And so here is an example of a girl commercial. Yeah, focus on the music, which you should be able to hear.
No, Luca, we can't hear the music. When you reshared, did you press the button?
Apparently I did not. Yeah. Share. How am I not sharing anymore? The share button does not share anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe if you want to go, maybe if you want to leave the meeting and come in
I
again.
have to leave the meeting. This is MS
Okay.
Teams striking again. I'm coming back.
Okay, yes, we'll wait for you. Okay.
Okay. Let's hope it works.
Just tell me when you're sharing, because I have another window open with the.
I am really at loss as to what is not working. I would like to share the screen.
Could you,
but
Andreas?
But I don't have the slides, and then
No, but then you would have to share the slides, but at least the video with the sound, maybe you could.
yeah, but if you want to send me the
Yeah, on the chat.
to attach the slides, I can share it for you.
Yeah, this was the map that I was showing, and the chat is I guess is because I'm really not familiar with what is the chat.
But you can't see the button to share anymore on your screen, or can you?
I can see the button, but it doesn't work anymore.
Ah.
Well,
Otherwise, just.
Yeah. Okay. Now it shows what I can share. God.
Okay. Okay. Now we can see it. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So this was the video that I was showing before, and
once upon a time in a magical land where fairies lived at the bottom of the stairs.
And then this is really not collaborating. Yes. And then we go back to this, and that was an example of a Kirk commercial. Then we are back, and this is an example of a toy commercial for boys. This is very much the two extremes. You can go down in the middle. This is very much on one side of the extreme. On the left side of the extreme, you have very much harmonious and quiet, and definitely non-distorted music in the middle, and also like rhythmically very much contained and slow paced. In the middle, you have a little bit more fast-paced music, and in the right side, the masculine commercials are very much more abrasive, louder, with less rhythm, less harmony, and basically that's the idea behind it. And now I should be able to share again the slides, hopefully. And
Otherwise, if you just click on share your whole screen, where your whole screen, you don't have to switch every time. If you click on share and then you click on share your screen and not a window, then you don't need to then change.
Yeah, I have 3 screens, but yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we can see the slides.
We are
yes.
back.
Yes.
We are back. Oh God. Yeah, the classical engineer that cannot use tech. So here we are back to, so I show you basically what the basics of gender-based market segmentation and how it looks like. And we were then gonna go into our data collection. So on one side, on the top, let's deconstruct this slide because it's very packed. On the left side, on the upper corner, you can see subjectivity, right corner, factuality is the gradient, if you want, how to read the hierarchy, how to read this data collection. So at the most factual, least subjective side of data collection, we have content analysis, which was validated and tested for reliability using classical metrics, Krippendorff's alpha, if people are familiar with it. And then in the middle, we have the music focus, mid-level perceptual features, which is very much in the picture that I was, in the graph that I was showing before, the interactive one, the two dimensions that you could see there were actually the compression, the reduction, the projection of these original 15 descriptors that are there. And then we collected multimodal aesthetic emotions, and which were collected with a focus on both audio and video, whereas the music focus was only on audio. And in terms of how the data is shaped, the content analysis is classes, is categories, and then in the mid-level perceptual features, the middle ones are scales, are bipolar scales. So on one side you have one meaning, on the other side you have a tentative of an opposite, which it doesn't really need to be the real opposite, because anyway, you collect so much data. We collected 15 scales, and then actually we don't use 15 of them. We always do dimensionality reduction and to get actually to the latent representation of the data. And then the multimodal aesthetic emotions are really simple scales from not at all to very much. So not at all happy, very much happy, not at all calm, very much calm. And this is, again, to show, this was the map that I was showing before, and you can also visit it yourself. There is the link there, and also of this one. The only difference between this slide and the other one is just MF, and this is precisely the musical one, and this one is the aesthetic emotion. As you can see, there are clear clusters emerging, and this is exactly what then we try to train our models to recognize. And this is also very much to explain, yes, we do machine learning on this data, but we also understand the data itself. We don't just throw machine learning on top of it and then assume that it's doing the right thing. We really try to understand what is going on underneath in the data itself. It's called about transparency, if you want, interpretability especially. And so the main takeaways of the data analysis, which is the data analysis, which is also part of of another paper, is that the music in masculine targeted adverts was substantially more abrasive, louder, more inharmonious, and more distorted than that in feminine targeted ones, and that gendered music styles in toy commercial were found to exhibit synergistic design choices. As you could see, there were two clusters and one in the middle. It's boys commercial on one side and girls commercials on the other, and commercial targeted at both boys and girls, meaning having both boys and girls in the casting. And they were in the middle. So it's very much deliberate. So toy advertising music appeared as to be deliberately and consistently in line with traditionalistic discourses on gender. Marketers knowingly tap into and reinforce music prime gender schemas, which in turn means that such music fulfills a normative function. This music entails notions of what is deemed appropriate behavior for boys and girls, because music is emotion, right? And so boys should be angry, girls should be happy. And that's the bottom line of the music there. In addition, music perceptual scales and voice-related content analytical variables were found to explain numerically in terms of like R2, we did a linear regression. The content were found to explain quite well the polarized multimodal affective ratings. So we were able to predict to a certain extent the emotions based only on the music descriptors, which shows then full circle that this study essentially presents an empirical understanding of the gendering of music as constructed within multimodal discourse, reiterating the importance of the sociocultural underpinnings of music cognition. And there is all to say today about music cognition and its sociocultural underpinnings. And we now can move on to the focus of today's talk, which I'm going to glaze over in terms of technical detail. But first of all, we were able to obtain, as you can see, F1 is similar to accuracies. You can say 95% of times we were able to predict whether a commercial was for boys or for girls in a setting where only boys and girls commercial were presented to the model, with basically 95% of accuracy. And how did we do that? Given that we only had 600 data points to start with. This is because the extreme gender polarization inherent in toy advertisements that we showed before, and we obtained, therefore, noteworthy results by leveraging multitask transfer learning, which really performs very much, particularly well in these kind of settings. Poor quantity of data, but a lot of annotation. Then multitask transfer learning really does the trick. What does it mean? That the model is trying to predict all of the things together that we showed before. So the target of the commercial, whether it's for boys or for girls, based only on the music, is trying to understand the type, the age, the gender exaggeration of the voice. In the case of gender exaggeration, an example is imagine the commentator of a fight, and that is very much masculine, gender exaggerated, with these growly, powerful voices, and a sing-song high pitches voice will be gender exaggerated in the feminine version of it. And for example, our model tries to predict all of that, and then it tries to predict the music perceptual descriptors and emotions. The pipeline is relatively simple. We separated the voice from the soundtracks just to prove the point that most of the gender polarization already lies in the music content. So first we take out the voice with using another machine learning tool, source separation, and when you take out the voice, then you have the soundtrack without voice, even though it's very much ruined to the human here, that the model still can very much make use of it. And then we trained our models and demonstrated that even without human voices in the soundtrack, the music contains most of the information to target the commercials based on gender, just auditorily. And very much in little detail, our model is trying to predict simultaneously these mid-level features in terms of regression, emotion regression, and content analytical items in terms of classification. The architecture is very usual in that regard. In multitask learning, you have a shared hidden layer, and then you branch out. So you have a shared layer for all of the tasks, and then you branch out with layers that are task specific. And the results of this are that in terms of the binary classification between boys and girls, we got an accuracy of 95% and without voice of 91%, as we were saying before. Then in the ternary classification, meaning between boys, girls, and mixed audience commercials, we have a significant drop in accuracy, because that just shows what we were seeing before in the interactive graph, that commercial targeted at both boys and girls, for example, I don't know, a table game and so on, or Lego. Most of Lego nowadays is not gender targeted. They very much lie in the middle. So if you ask just on the sound, not on the language, just sound, whether the commercial for boys and for girls, the model cannot really tell. And this is also already another way to really measure this bipolar distribution of the data with the mixed audience commercial in the middle. So going from qualitatively assessing this phenomenon to actually measuring it numerically. And then perceptual descriptors were then best modeled. This is also another finding, that perceptual descriptors were best modeled without human voice, which also shows that, as we were already asking the participants to do, to focus on the background music. So we asked participants to rate commercial based on electric to acoustic, for example, and our model was able to do better this kind of regression when the voice was separated from the soundtrack, showing that, yeah, participants were indeed able to focus on the background. Another thing that we could not prove otherwise if not using these methods. And then here we come basically to the end of the presentation of the slides. We have made a demo, a publicly available demo on Colab, on Google Collaboratory. The only thing that you need is a Gmail account. You can just make even one for it, for the sake of it, and the model basically then throws out all this kind of prediction that we were saying about, and it tells you on a scale from high to low where the commercial is in particular. And this was really a lot of information, and also very much fragmented because of my incapability of using Microsoft Teams, and I'm really sorry for that. If you're interested, the top one is the preprint of the data analysis that I summarized at the beginning, which is going to be available anyway in 2 weeks in PLOS ONE. And then, yeah, you have my contacts, and very much happy to continue the conversation later.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Luca. Okay, so let me just stop the recording now, and then we can go to the Q&A. Yes, let me, should be. Interrompe.